Hi everyone, my name is Muna Mohammed, and I am so thankful to be receiving the Girls Rock Community Action Award. Thank you to the Hardy Girls Healthy Women for choosing me to win this award. I'm very honored. Community is defined as a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. The Lewiston community has changed a lot over the past decade, and the dynamics of our community has changed and is continuing to change. As a Somali black Muslim woman in Lewiston, I stumbled across many trials and tribulations that have allowed me to grow into the leader I am today. The year of 2014 has been the most transformative year of my life, and here is why. 2014 has definitely been interesting in terms of what I have learned, what I have been through, and what I have become. Out of everything I learned, the most important skills I adapted to be a leader in my community is to love and appreciate myself and what I have, to question myself, and to always fight for what I believe in. In May of 2014, I went to Brooklyn for an exchange program called Operation Breaking Stereotypes. The school we had an exchange with came to Lewiston last year, shadowed our schools, and lived with us for 5 days. This past year, it was our turn to experience life in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, to see what the schools, education, and everyday life is like there. On the third floor of the big building, formerly called Wingate High School, was the School for Democracy and Leadership. Each floor of the school had to be broken up into smaller schools because of previous disciplinary problems the school had. The facilities the school had were poorly funded, and most of the students, 99% of them being from a minority group, lived in project housing around Crown Heights. After spending 5 days in a tiny apartment, an extremely different school, and in a city bigger than what I've ever been exposed to living in Lewiston, Maine, I learned to love and appreciate myself and everything that I have. In July of 2014, I had the honor of attending Seeds of Peace, a conflict resolution camp, for a second year as a peer support member. These 2 weeks consisted of dialogue sessions, team building, and learning more about one's identity. Prior to this, I had never been put in a position to question my identity, what I identify with, and why I identify with what I identify with. One day, we were asked to separate ourselves into groups based on how we identify. We then were given the opportunity to ask groups questions speaking to them in the collective. At one point, the Middle Eastern group asked the white group a series of questions and vice versa. Of these questions were, why do you bomb us? If you don't like it here, then why don't you just leave? And what makes you American and not me? As an observer, I had never felt such frustration from people that I had been sharing a bunk with for 2 weeks. I never thought that these words could exit out of their mouths mainly because of the experiences we shared and had together. This was upsetting, but I learned so much in that 4-hour session about myself and others around me than the 2 week session dialogues that we had. I realized how the activity forced me to answer a lot of questions that I had always been scared to ask myself. At the end of this experience, I left with one important notion: always question yourself, even if it's the hardest thing to do. And finally, this past December, my peers and I decided to hang up posters in our schools that had quotes of the last words of unarmed people of color who had their lives unjustly taken from them by law enforcement. We thought it would be a good idea to raise awareness and peacefully protest within our own schools to try to get a conversation about race and race relations in our community, state, and nation, considering the previous indictments and what those indictments came about, for example, in Ferguson, New York City, etc. Of these last words were, I can't breathe, I'm going to college, mom, and I don't have a gun, stop shooting. We tied the display together with the movement title #BlackLivesMatter. Early that Monday, our administration forcefully suggested we take down our display, change the message so it's more inclusive, and then to seek reapproval to hang the sign. The anger and frustration I felt in this moment was chaotic and unprecedented. I didn't really know why my friends, my peers, and I were being targeted simply because we were trying to get a conversation started in our school. We were trying to bring good social justice. It wasn't a hassle we were causing. It was more of a let's get talking. I used social media as a platform to get my word out, and soon was contacted by the Portland Press Herald. After being interviewed and having an article go up about what had happened, the administration finally started to listen. We subsequently met with our superintendent and finally received approval to rehang our posters, unedited. I definitely received negative feedback, but this was one of the most accomplishing weeks of my entire life. The end goal was great, but what mattered most was how my peers and I spoke out respectfully and how we got a conversation about race started in Lewiston. I learned to always fight for what I believe in, and I think it's a trait that many people should learn to adapt and should learn to take advantage of, because at the end of the day, the power of the people is stronger than the people in power. My name is Muna Muhammad, and I encourage you all to learn to love and appreciate yourselves and what you have. Question yourself and always fight for what you believe in. Thank you so much.